Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
Or is it Tiffany? I'll explain that in a minute. Just in case you're just here for the spoiler-free section, I'll explain the Tiffany joke in a minute. This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we watch a movie, we talk about it. It's that simple. And we are here today to talk about The Matrix Resurrections, which is the fourth Matrix movie, which has been threatened upon us for the last couple of years and has finally made its way to our eyeballs over the Christmas period. And this is the earliest we could have possibly gotten to it. Tara was away for Christmas and got back, watched the movie, and we're here. We'll be back to our 70s season next week. So look forward to Damnation Alley next week. Yeah, Damnation Alley's next week. So look forward to that. But obviously we talked in depth about the first three films. We gushed over the original, how it's only gotten better in the couple of decades since it came out. It is a rich film, full of subtext, meaning, stunning action, visuals, all that stuff. And then we got to Reloaded and Revolutions, and I mean, Tara tried to be a bit more diplomatic. I just shat all over them because they're complete train wrecks.
There's stuff in there that I really like, yes.
But I think I came out like proper guns blazing on those with ammo in the chambers. It wasn't just firing blanks, right? I don't know where I'm going with this metaphor.
Out of the trench coats.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of, I won't even say expectations, but a lot of baggage get into this movie. A lot of baggage. Because I wouldn't say I've expected anything good. If anything, I went into this thinking, at best, it's probably going to be slightly better than the last two. Just because it's been enough time that there's maybe some fresh ideas. But I'm not expecting, getting expecting the first film is just asking for disappointment. It's just asking for it. So, I didn't know what to expect. I really did not. But the trailer didn't do much for me. I can say that much. I was just kind of apathetic towards the trailer. How did you feel going in? What was your mood? What was your gauge at?
I really liked the trailer. I mean, they've been playing it in theaters. Like every movie I went and saw in theaters, there was a Matrix Resurrection trailer. And every time it got me pumped. That White Rabbit song really works so well with the what we know from the plot and from the original trilogy, and just seeing Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss together, and they look so good together on the screen. Or okay, I don't know, it looks promising. It got me pumped. I had no idea what the plot was going to be or how you bring back Trinity and Neo after the events of the third film, but I did kind of have some higher hopes for it than maybe you did, and was looking forward to it.
We'll see if those higher hopes panned out. We will, of course, start spoiler-free. We'll give you a warning before we dive into the spoilers, just in case you're holding off. I mean, it is on HBO Max, but maybe you're either not in the US or you're waiting for, I don't know, you can go see it in the theater, whatever it may be. So we all start spoiler-free. Do not fear. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much about the premise because it was kind of intentionally kept under wraps, but of course, the trailer did make it clear that Neo and Trinity are in the Matrix and they don't seem to remember their past, and the movie was going to be about them waking up and realizing who they are, and then but everything beyond that was kind of it showed us some new characters. We got Bugs, who's was it Colleen?
The blue-haired one.
Colleen. We get her name wrong. It's not Colleen. Yeah. No, she was Colleen in Iron Fist. Her name was Colleen in Iron Fist. Her name is Jessica Henwick's, the actress. That's where I was. I was I knew I was getting Colleen from somewhere. Yeah. So, yes. So Colleen from Iron Fist, which is a terrible show, by the way. Absolute garbage. Don't watch it. But
didn't see it.
But Jessica Henwick, right? So you saw a lot of her in the trailer. You saw a lot of what appeared to be a younger version of Morpheus, with our recent Candyman and Watchmen actor. Yaha Abdul-Mateen II. So we got a sense of things, but not really much beyond anything I just said. So I'll just leave it there, plot wise, and I'll ask Tara the question. What did you think of The Matrix Resurrections?
Well,
Well,
without going into any plot, I was very intrigued by where the story went, and I actually thought it was pretty good. I really like it. It is a bizarre turn of events, but I actually think it's quite complicated, especially since it is working off the original trilogy, which has a lot of stuff in there, like a lot of deep layers, and so it's sort of building on that trilogy. So you kind of have to, like, if you only watched the first movie and skipped the sequels because you heard bad things, like, you're probably going to be lost in this film. So I don't know, like, I suspect if I watch it like a couple more times that my rating or my opinion will change, and I'm not sure which direction it will go exactly, but as of right now, I've seen it twice and I like it. I think it's kind of ballsy and I like where it goes. All right, what do you think?
There seemed to be some, like, I don't know, fear in your voice as you said that.
I suspect you're not on my side here. But.
So I actually also saw it twice. And part of that was just because we were supposed to record yesterday, then we pushed it to today, and I thought, you know what, I'll just put it on again. So, but what was interesting about watching it the second time is that it did allow me to consider certain things that I didn't on the first viewing, and my opinion on at least one element of the movie did change on the second viewing. And that was basically what changed for me was, does the movie have something to actually say? Because coming out of the first viewing, I really wasn't that sure if it did. Despite all the things that we're going to talk about what it does with plot, I wasn't so sure if it was just like, this is a mishmash of stuff that we can do, rather than there's actually some sort of like message or statement that can be taken from it. And to be fair to it, on the second viewing, I do think that there is a message in there. I do think it is unified, and I think it's something that I probably appreciate the most about the movie, is that there is kind of a central theme that we're going to talk about a lot, I think, as we go through the spoilers. My opinion didn't change on anything else, though, and that opinion was that it is a convoluted mess with horrible execution, terrible action scenes, in a bland visual style that looks like a network TV show. All of the atmosphere and style of The Matrix is gone. It is such a dull-looking movie. Like, the visual effects have gotten worse.
You are so Merovingian right now.
The visual effects have gotten worse. There's so many things wrong with the execution. So here's the thing. I think, like the original Matrix, I appreciate that there is a message there, and the original Matrix has a lot of messaging in it. But I think the execution, like, I am convinced, and it's only one Wachowski this time, but I am convinced the original Matrix was a fluke, because they have done nothing even approaching the quality of that film since. Nothing. Not even just in the franchise. Everything they have made that I have seen has been passably shoddy at best. And that includes this. So
well, you haven't watched Jupiter Ascending yet.
I don't think that's going to change my opinion like you think it will, but we'll see.
It's not bad. I mean, you'll hate it, but
of course I'm going to hate it.
Kind of enjoy it.
Sometimes a movie has a reputation, and sometimes you just look at the cast. You look at, was it Channing Tatum and Mila? And not that I hate both of those actors, but
Mila Kunis. It was Eddie Redmayne who was the worst in it.
Oh, Eddie Redmayne.
But just because he made a really confusing decision for his character.
I have a lot of plot things to, because I think this is the thing. I think the messaging in this film and the core theme that it's playing with, and some of the ways that it shows that theme, are quite good. But I do think that it doesn't link up with a good plot, or like there's convoluted reasons, like motivations for some of the characters are just nonsense to me. There's elements of the third act that I still don't fully understand, and I don't think it's because they're like, you know, like higher brain function, like I need to like ascend to like understand what it's doing. I think it's just bad writing. I think it's just convoluted nonsense, and there's exposition monologues, there's all sorts of things going on. So I'm going to praise one thing in this fairly well. I'm going to praise one thing and talk about the various elements that make up that thing, because there's a lot of it that it does make it up, but the actual functioning plot, the characters, the motivation, the build up, the suspense, the stakes I think are a bit vague towards the end and aren't solidified, and feel because of that not that big in comparison to clearly defined stakes that you got in the original film, or even the sequels. I mean, the sequels are terrible, but at least it's well, they're going to kill us all if we don't solve this problem. They're like, all of Zion's going to die, and so that's why we have to do the thing. Like there's a central character in this, a sort of fairly prominent character who's now like in a place of power, right, within the humans, who flip-flops on decision making randomly in this movie for no reason, and I don't understand for the life of me why. Nothing justifies it, and I'm going to tear it apart. So but honestly, the worst thing is though is just how generic the whole thing looks, and the action is bad. Like the action scenes, given that The Matrix is one of the things it's so well known for is its impressive forward thinking, like, you know, breaking new ground action sequences. This is so, like, other than a couple of brief moments of like slow motion, which doesn't look as good as the slow motion the first film does because they just do it in a more typical style now. Like the action looks like it's off a network TV show. Like it's just all a bunch of quick cuts. It's just like crappy hand-to-hand fights. It feels like it's just like we have to have some action scenes, so there's some action scenes. It doesn't feel like Wachowski wants to do any action scenes.
No, there's actually really not a whole lot of them in this film. I mean, not as many as maybe you're expecting.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't really any big set piece action either, unlike the other films.
Nah, maybe one at the very end. I'd maybe describe as a set piece, but other than that, yeah, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a chase scene for the most part. But yeah, I mean, I think the action is okay. Like this movie isn't really trying to give you an action film as much as the other ones were. I think this one is, because of the plot of it and what maybe the real intention of the film is, it kind of takes a step back from all the action. And all the action that's there is kind of very much supposed to remind you of the other films, but it's doing that on purpose.
I don't think any of that excuses what is there being as poor as it is, though.
I mean, yeah, okay. I wouldn't say there's any real like stand out, like, oh, there's no hallway, you know, beat 'em up scene or anything that we've seen 100 times in other films since, you know, Old Boy or whatever. I haven't seen that film. Or there isn't like anything that really stands out to me either, with the exception of some of the parkour and stunt work that's pretty good. That I enjoyed watching that kind of stuff in the film.
It's not even about having standout things though. It's just that the basic action just isn't, like, even just the basic like fighting that happens like should be better than it is. It's one thing to not measure up to the original Matrix in terms of how good the fights and action scenes are, but it's another thing to be this mundane about it.
I mean, I guess I thought they were fine. It's just I'm glad there's no like rubber people in it anymore.
Yeah. Well, my big thing is every time an action scene started, it was just kind of, it was almost like watching a musical. Do you know, I don't like musicals, right? And one of the big things I don't like about them is that I don't care about the songs. I don't like the songs usually, and I'm just waiting for the songs to end. The action scenes in this movie are almost like the songs in a musical, where I'm just like, this is just obligatory. It's not very good. Just get to the end of the action scene so we can advance whatever the plot is of what we're doing. Like after a while, that's how it started to feel. So it is a problem. It's something that stuck out to me. The bigger thing though, honestly, is there's just no atmosphere. There is no tone to any of this. Like everything,
it feels like the later Wachowski films.
Yeah, it's flat and brightly lit. Obviously everything's shot digitally now, whereas the original Matrix films were shot on film. So that's obviously a key reason for why it looks different. But it's not just that though. Like so much of this is like shot in really brightly lit like offices and coffee shops, and just like there's a little bit more atmosphere.
I thought it looked okay. I thought it was kind of a pretty movie.
This looks dull. Like once it gets into like the real world a little bit, okay, there's a little bit more atmosphere just because of what the real world is like, right? It's a little bit different, but everything looks a little bit more clinical now. Honestly, it's especially poor in a movie like this, which is meant to be a sequel to something that was made from before. Because while I do think movies in general don't look as good as they used to, it's more noticeable in a sequel to an old movie because it's like, well, I can directly compare what this movie's supposed to look like, and I don't think this looks. It's not even that it's different. Like, different would be fine if there's like a good reason for the difference, but I don't think
well, I mean,
actually.
there sort of is a reason for this one to look different.
Yeah, there's a reason to look really different. There's not a reason for it to look like this though, which is just the same as every other movie looks. There's no style at all. I'm not decrying that there's a change in style. I'm decrying that there is no style.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Like, I watch it and I can see, okay, that's a Wachowski film, because this is what their movies have looked like. They've always had this bright color palette since the original Matrix.
Not since the original Matrix not got a bright color palette at all. What are you talking about?
No, I mean, like, since then, like, that was the last time you had that, like, green, blue, or whatever palette. But since then, their movies have been very bright and colorful. And
so since after the Matrix.
Like, yeah, so it looks like it looks like a Wachowski film. Like, I can see that and say, okay, that's Wachowski's.
Well, this is partly why the Wachowski films are shit.
Okay, but like,
well, no,
I mean, it looks like their direction.
Actually, let me cut in here with something else though. I don't know if I completely agree with this in the sense that Speed Racer obviously was very bright and colorful, but that was not generic bright and colorful. That was stylistically bright and colorful. That was intentionally very cartoony, and that was, for better or worse, whether you dislike that movie, like that was clearly a visual style that they were going for. Whereas this just feels like it could be on NBC. Like, that's what it looks like.
I mean, it looks like Jupiter Ascending also.
So I don't know. I thought the film looked just bland, and you hate when I use that word, but what else am I meant to use? There's no life in it.
I thought it was kind of pretty, and like there's a line from Jonathan Groff's character of like it's so beautiful it has to be fake, right?
Holden, you mean? That's Holden.
Yes.
Holden from Mindhunter. That's his official name. I won't accept this actor name.
I was thinking of him as King George from Hamilton.
Oh, very fancy. Yeah. So I guess the other thing is that before we will get to spoilers, but we will say there is a meta element to this movie, right? There's a meta thing to it. And I will say I appreciate what the meta thing is going for. It does feel a little unmatrixy to have this weird like meta angle, but it's doing something different. This whatever, you can roll with it. I will say
it makes
this,
it feel like a very personal film to Lana Wachowski.
Yeah, but I will say this though. No matter how much you satirize and do meta commentary on, and I see the cat in the background, don't worry. No matter how much you satirize or talk about all the caveats of a reboot or nostalgia sequel or bringing something back or returning to the well and the lack of creativity that is, and like relying on nostalgia and all the things that the movie kind of like pokes at early on, that's all fine and well, but when the rest of the movie just does it anyway, you're kind of negating your own like bite. Like, ultimately it doesn't matter that you've pointed all this out if you still go and do it anyway and rely on a lot of those things, which this movie does a lot of.
I think a lot of it's satirical.
I think some of it tries to be satirical. I don't know if it's successful at it being satirical. There are some moments that harken back to the original films that I like made me roll my eyes so much in this, and maybe it's supposed to be satire, but it doesn't play like that. Some of these moments, there's characters that come back that should not be back, and we'll get into that. And honestly, the biggest complaint is the same complaint I had about Reloaded. It's the same complaint I had about Revolutions. There should be no sequels to The Matrix. It just ruins the mystique of that first film. And much like those last two films, this to me is not I'm not going to think about this when I'm watching The Matrix, because thinking about this happening like later in the timeline just ruins all the mystique of that film. Like, I'm not thinking about it. And honestly, I don't care if the Wachowski name's on this. This kind of felt like fan fiction, right? It felt like fan fiction, and this is
I don't think so. I think fans would have written a very different film. I think this film feels very personal for Lana Wachowski.
It is. No, the key theme that's in there is very personal, but there's a lot of this that does feel fan fictiony to me. It just kind of feels like a couple of fans sitting down and going, "But what if this happened later, and then this happened, and then this happened," and it almost like comes across as, and this kind of fits into the theme in a way, but it almost comes across as Lana Wachowski. Like, all of the stuff like dealing with how the mythology's evolved and the time difference between like the last film and this film is almost stuff she's just not interested in, and it comes across that way in the movie, but we're still devoting a lot of time to explaining it. So if the director's not interested in that stuff, then ultimately you get scenes where it's just not that engaging. It's not that interesting to hear about these advancements in the world of the Matrix since that last film, because ultimately the director doesn't seem to give a shit, because the whole thing's kind of almost... I saw someone say this online, actually. It has almost like a what do you call it? A shit post. Like, this is a shit post version of a movie when, like, so Warner Brothers wanted the Wachowskis to make a Matrix movie, and Lana said, sure, I'll do it, and made a movie about how she doesn't want to make another Matrix movie. That's what this is. It's a shit post of a Matrix movie. Which is kind of funny. I kind of appreciate that, like, for what it is, but it doesn't necessarily make the movie overall a good movie or compelling for some of the reasons that I've mentioned. I'll get into more of them as we go into the deep end of the spoilers and whatnot, but...
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I still enjoy the film. Like, I really latched onto the whole meta element of the film, and, you know, I won't get into details, but I do think that, you know, even the second time watching it, with that, keeping that in mind, like, I noticed a lot more of what I really think is supposed to be satire. And I think even like the stuff that you don't like in the end of the film or confused by is kind of, you know, Lana taking the Matrix back for herself instead of making it this trivial thing that it was turned into. And like a lot of people have latched on to ideas like the red pill and turned it into this like conservative anti-woman thing. And she's taken that back as well. So I really do think that this movie has a lot going on in it that with multiple viewings will like improve maybe how you overall see the point of the film rather than just whether or not it's a good Matrix movie.
That's the thing, though. I think after the second viewing, I do get the point. But I don't think that makes the scenes themselves that compelling to watch, especially in the back half. I think the back half suffers especially in this regard. Once it gets to the plot of, like, oh, we have to go in the Matrix and do this for the third act and all that, like, that's where I'm just starting to get bored. In fact, the first time watching this, I didn't watch it in one sitting. The movie's 2.5 hours long. Like, I tapped out and, like, had a break about an hour and a half in because I just was like, you know what, I need to, like, go do something else. I'm getting bored.
I mean, yeah, but we did that with Solaris also.
I didn't do that with Solaris.
Oh, well, I did because I fell asleep twice trying to watch it. I mean, it's still a good movie.
Well, Solaris is a much better movie than Matrix Resurrections, okay? Let me just put that out there at this point. All right?
I'll agree with that.
Besides, you're reading subtitles. Subtitles can make you sleepy. That's just a common thing. Anyway, how dare you try to counter my point by saying, oh, Solaris made me fall asleep.
Well, I mean, sometimes your points are BS. Gotta call you out on them.
When I have to take a break because the movie's boring and I want to go do something else, that's a valid point to make, damn it. I guess we have to go to spoilers so we can actually start talking about the movie properly. So yes, full spoilers from this point on for The Matrix Resurrections. You have been warned. Brace yourself. Here we go. Why the... I want to swear. Why is there any version of Smith in this movie? Like, piss off. And why is he here? There is no reason for this character to be in this movie.
It's because in the original trilogy, if you've watched the sequels, which I know we have, but if anyone else is curious.
If you're unfortunate enough to have watched the sequels, yes.
I mean, it's explained in there. Like there's always a Smith whenever when the anomaly that's stored in Neo becomes awakened and becomes the one, then the Smith also gets activated because there's supposed to be some sort of balance. So because Neo starts to get activated in this, the program still exists for Smith as well. I would
like it to be noted for the record that this was something they added and reloaded, and I said they shouldn't have done. And I wish it wasn't the case, so yeah. I do not accept this.
Well, they brought Agent Smith back for Reloaded after Neo, like, presumably murdered him. But
oh my, I you know what? Smith is such a great character in that first movie, and then like Reloaded and Revolutions just murder him. They just make him so lame.
Yeah. They gave him a different look in this one, though, and a different character. I don't know if I love the Smith character in this. I just think he's so far from, Hugo Weaving. And, like, remember the one guy who, like, Smith goes into and he's sort of doing, like, a Hugo Weaving impression sometimes? And you're like, that's it, that's Smith.
In the real world, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really see that in Jonathan Groff's performance. He's more just... I'm Smith, but he's kind of like the Morpheus in this world too. But I don't know if I love that, but I kind of wish he had more Hugo Weaving in him. Just a skosh.
I actually don't think he affects things that much though, which is why I'm kind of like baffled as to why we even bothered having him. Because it's one thing for me to complain and think that they've ruined Smith as a character and he's not a good villain.
He is the Deus Ex Machina in the film also, and he runs the company called that.
That's not an excuse to have him in the movies that he runs the company. Like, he doesn't need to be running the company. Like, and the Deus Ex Machina thing at the end where he shows up and just happens to save the day for a moment, like, that's whatever. But like, you could easily just write something else to make up for that. Like, ultimately,
I think
hold on. Ultimately, he doesn't really do anything in the movie, right? Apart from monologue occasionally, he remembers who he is, and he has probably by far the most laughably bad moments in this film. There's a couple of moments in this with him that I hate. When Neo first walks into his office and he quotes Smith from the first movie, which, by the way, repeatedly throughout this film, it'll cut to little snippets of footage from the original trilogy, and it was needless and pointless, like 99% of the time.
There was one moment that I really needed it, and they didn't put it in there, which was when, one of the scenes in Io where the girl's like, or not Io, but when he first gets on the ship, Neo first gets on the ship, and she's like, I'm so-and-so's granddaughter. I'm like, who is that again?
I think that was the love triangle with Morpheus, that dude. I think that was...
okay.
I think that was him.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Martian Manhunter?
Yeah,
right?
Martian Manhunter.
Yeah,
that one.
okay.
That's him. Right, so there's that moment. But the moment that really made me, especially in the second viewing, because in the second viewing, I'm just sort of like, I can sort of pay attention to details a bit more because I'm not just taking in and following what's happening. But the moment where, like, Smith awakens and realizes who he is, because he also doesn't know who he is. He's just, company boss man. The way he yells out Mr. Anderson in the slow motion as the sprinklers are on in the office, it just makes me laugh. It's so terrible. It's so
I didn't
terrible.
laugh at it. I thought it was kind of cool because it transitions from there to Neo being in the office with Neil Patrick Harris. So it's kind of like a bizarre scene. Like, what the hell's going on here? That it didn't make me laugh. But I could see why.
I mean, not only did it just sound and look stupid, but it's also, again, it's the nostalgia of, remember in the first movie when the sprinklers are on and he's, they're rescuing Morpheus, that scene, like that's kind of what the sprinklers are meant to kind of make you think of. Like, that's what we're doing with this. We're giving them like little details to trigger flashbacks and possibly wake Neo up. That's kind of like what's going on. But yeah, I honestly, like, I have nothing almost else to say about Smith other than I just thought, and I like the actor well enough, but I think his presence in this film is not needed. It feels like just an extra layer of service. Maybe you could tie it into the theme about the idea of him being kind of this like necessary evil that he needs to be around in some form, but
Sure, I think he's there mostly because they sort of wrote that into the trilogy that Neo, Trinity, and Smith are all sort of connected by this anomaly, this code that's been put into him. So, like, I think you can't, because of the lore that they build up with that, you can't really have Neo without Smith and Trinity based on those two sequels.
I don't think people would have cared that much. And what you're really describing is they wrote themselves into a corner.
Yeah, so they included Smith. But I think he's also there as a bit of a parody of like modern films and how you have to bring everything back. He doesn't come back the same. Like, he's very different.
Yeah, I get it's that thing though, where like the satire works to a point until you're just doing it so much that, well, it doesn't really matter that you're trying to claim it's satire now. You're just doing it. You're still doing all the nostalgia pops. You're still doing all the moments that harken back to specific moments in the original
point of the film.
That doesn't make it fun to watch, though. That doesn't change the fact that I'm sick of these nostalgia sequels that have infested Hollywood for the last 5 years.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of fitting that this came out at the same time as like Spider-Man and Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah, I would say they're both better movies than this, though. Well,
I mean,
Spider-Man's definitely a better movie than this.
Spider-Man was a really good movie. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff in it I didn't like also, but in this one,
Oh, I concur. But Spider-Man's got a better executed story though. Like it actually makes more sense, and like the execution is better. I think
Sure.
than this. So yeah, the movie like. So the first chunk of the movie, there's a lot of interesting bugs and stuff. We'll get back to that I think in a bit. Let's just start with Neo and like what he's up to in the Matrix. So he is actually a game designer in this world, and he made a game trilogy called The Matrix. So in the Matrix universe, there was a Matrix
Mass Effect.
There's a Matrix trilogy of games. Do you actually think the Mass Effect's anything like the Matrix?
No, I'm
Okay,
just saying, like,
just checking.
he's like praised for this
Yeah.
for this popular science fiction game trilogy that's life changing.
Yeah, but I mean specifically, it's like the story seems to be exactly what the original trilogy was, because they reference it repeatedly, like when they're talking about it. But so it's this meta thing where
And a disappointing third film, just like Mass Effect 3. I've never played the games.
Mass Effect 3 has a slightly wonky ending, but it's great up until that point. I like Mass Effect 3 shits all over the Matrix sequels, okay? I'm just going to say it, right? I'm not
All right.
having this baseless slander.
I'm not slandering anything.
You said it, okay? You said
I'm
it.
just saying this is the Mass Effect of this Matrix world, is the Matrix.
I don't think you have to compare it to anything. I think it's just the Matrix of this Matrix world.
Fine.
The medium's not really a big deal. I mean, it's just,
It is hilarious though that he's been given awards for his Matrix game, and I'm pretty sure it's the same as the game award that he got for or I don't know if he won. He might have won for Cyberpunk or something.
oh, I don't know. But I think the reason why it's a game series in the Matrix for the meta reasons and not a movie series is because Matrix, a video game means that he's coding things, and the coding things fits into the idea of coding them. Because, I mean, let's just get to it. The Morpheus in this movie is not like a time-traveled Morpheus or a reborn Morpheus. Morpheus in this movie is a fake version of Morpheus that Neo created for his game, kind of. And he's like sort of like left it there for like, you know, Matrix, like, you know, hackers to come in and like take him out and make him real, or real in the real Matrix but not real in the real world, although he kind of is because they have this nanotech stuff to go on. But anyway, I'm jumping ahead. The point is that it's plot relevant because the Morpheus he made in his little fake world, which is mimicking the Matrix movie, does get taken out by the new do we have like a name for the characters who go in and out of the Matrix? Do we have a name for those types of people?
I mean, are they still red pillars?
We never called them that before.
Well, that's what they are, though, right? They're the ones that took the red pill.
They are, but you said that as if that was a name that we used to we used in the previous. We have never said that.
I don't know. Maybe it's because of all the red pillars online. It makes me think of it now. I'm so much more aware of this red pill like Reddit group now than I ever was before.
I'm not aware of it at all, so I'm quite happy.
Oh man, they do not like women.
I'm quite happy staying away from it. But
oh man.
So you've got Neo working at a game company, and the meta thing is that Smith, who's his boss, says, "Hey, the higher ups at Warner Brothers." They actually say Warner Brothers, right? Did you say yeah? The higher ups at Warner Brothers want a Matrix 4. And Neo's like, "Oh, I don't know about that." And he's like, "No, I know you don't want to do it. I know it's like it feels like a return to the cash cow. And it's not creative, and it's not all that. Blah blah blah."
Yeah, it even says like they're gonna do it with or without you. So do you want to get involved or not?
While I do like the theme that this is poking at, and I'm about to talk about that in a second, I do think being this explicit with it and having a Matrix trilogy and wanting to make a Matrix 4 or not wanting to make a Matrix 4 is like maybe a little like too on. Like there's a way to do this theme and get this point across without beating us over the head with it by directly just saying it as explicitly as this.
It does take you like I mean you're sort of picking up a little bit on the meta because you see him working at his computer and you see the Matrix code going. You're like, oh, is he like
honestly
what is this? And then like once Jonathan Groff says Warner Brothers, you're like, oh, okay, so this is just straight up.
Yeah, honestly,
Lana Wachowski is Neo in this movie.
Them actually saying Warner Brothers and them actually having the Matrix trilogy as the games, I think that's what makes this feel like fan fiction to me, because I think that the correct way of doing this is to not use the actual terms, because I think all of the other stuff in the movie that builds on this theme, right? So to break down what the theme of this movie is the way I see it, right? It's a good time to say, because obviously Trinity's in there too, and he runs into her in the coffee shop, and she's like, I'm enticed by this lady who's named Tiffany. That was the joke earlier, because she's called Tiffany. Anyway, basically, when they sit down and talk after like an initial awkward meeting, because she's got like a husband and kids, right, in this Matrix, she asked the question, hey, I googled you, I played a bit of the game, is there any of you in the main character? And this is a little on the nose, but I appreciate this one more than anything else, because this is the director saying, yes, there's some of me in the main character, which is also true of the film. So in this movie, Neo represents Lana Wachowski, and Neo has fallen out of love with making what he loves. He's fallen out of love with his creative passion in making, in this case, games and real world movies. And Trinity represents that creative passion. So this is about finding and reconnecting with his creative passion. And there's a lot of things throughout the movie that kind of reinforce that theme and that idea as it goes on. It justifies a really big weird twist at the end, which I think works thematically, but is a little wonky in like actual plot details, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't, like, you can kind of make it work, but it's more of a thematic decision than it is a like, this makes sense because of what we've set up in previous movies. But we'll get to that when we get to it. So I think there's a lot of lines in this conversation, especially talking about like him putting himself in the, like, a lot of the character in the game, maybe too much. The fact that he doesn't want to make a fourth one, all the scenes, like the montage of all the interns talking about, oh, this is what we should do for the next what makes the Matrix, and they're all, and it gets super meta.
Yeah, this like brainstorming meeting where they just keep repeating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, bullet time. It's all about bullet time, and they talk about, you know, various other elements of it. It should feel original. It should feel hard hitting and all that. And there's a lot of like things about in the movie that point to, like, you know, stuff starting to feel like it's lost its identity. It's just this corporate thing now. You're just churning out a product, that kind of sentiment.
They turn something that they loved into something trivial.
Yeah,
you know,
that word's used.
Line's in there too.
Yeah, that line's in there, trivial. And you do get the impression this is Lana Wachowski talking about the Matrix and saying there was all this passion for it, and it became all this. What's a bit weird about it to me, just to think about the real world, this is not really about the movie, but is like, at what point did this feeling kind of, I mean, obviously she felt this way about being asked constantly probably to make a fourth one, but I never got the impression they didn't want to do a 2 and 3. That kind of felt like something they wanted to do at the time. Am I wrong in saying that?
I don't know. I mean, 2 and 3, 1 feels very much like a standalone movie. And then 2 and 3 came out a few years later, back to back. And they do feel rushed. And they do feel like, well, we have to build on this mythology. How do we do it? And so, like, even, I think in the film, in this movie, they say, Neo at one point says that they never really thought about franchise when, you know, when they made The Matrix. So maybe it was. Maybe it was something like, well, okay, we love this thing. How can we expand on it so that it doesn't, you know, leave us and go into somebody else's hands at least?
Maybe this is almost like, I mean, maybe she's spoken about it before. I mean, this is not a revelation, but I've certainly not heard anything about, like, we didn't want to do a 2 and 3, and we kind of felt pressured into it, or we felt it was our duty to do it because of just the way things work. But I wonder if, like, this is almost like a stealth, like, I'm finally kind of admitting that we never really we never had at least had the time to really properly think about what 2 and 3 should be, and it kind of became what it was. Although it's a little bit weird that this movie does reference so much of 2 and 3, because it does, as we get into the plot. It does.
It's not just a sequel to The Matrix, you know, the one everybody loves. It's definitely, like I said before, if you haven't watched the other 2 films, which I know people who haven't, then yeah, you'll probably be lost. Like, there's a lot going on.
I just want to put this out here right now. I don't think it's worth watching the other 2 to watch this one. I think if you didn't want to watch the other 2, you're fine skipping this one too.
You don't need this. Is the I got like New Nightmare vibes from it. So like, you wouldn't start with that version or like go from 1 to, you know, New Nightmare. You would probably watch the other ones.
I think The Matrix is going to still be a movie that, at least by myself, but I think it's a good number of people are just going to recommend The Matrix. They're not going to say watch the whole franchise or watch all the sequels. They're going to say watch The Matrix, and if you really want to, sure, go ahead. But like. I think
yeah, the first one is like, for me, the first one's a masterpiece,
and I think that's still true here. I don't think. I mean, maybe. I mean, I have seen like a couple of like extreme reactions online where like, oh, this is the best one, and like, piss off. Like,
well, it's the best of the sequels, I think.
Yeah, I suppose I agree with that. I mean, it has the weakest action of the sequels, but it definitely has the best theme and ideas of the sequels.
And there's no rubber people.
I think the execution is extremely flawed, but yes, I think, you know, if you're boiling it down to things, yeah, it is the best sequel.
I mean, yeah, there are definitely times where I was scratching my head during and after the first time I watched this film. And even the second time, there's some parts I'm like, I don't know. I have to think about that. I'm sure it makes sense. I just got to think about it in my brain.
Yeah, but it's not like a David Lynch I need to think about it. It's more like this is a bit convoluted in the script. It feels like some stuff get edited out. It definitely feels like there's stuff that's like cut. In fact, maybe that's why Smith feels so like not as essential to this, because maybe all the stuff that made him more integrated got cut for various reasons.
Maybe. I don't really have that much of a problem with Smith like you do, but
oh, is that the only thing I've got
perhaps.
a problem with? Don't you worry, I've got more to complain about. Like, we're not done.
I'm sure you do.
We're not done. We'll come back and touch on the theme as more things come up that tie into it, but there's definitely a number of things throughout the film that kept tapping back into that theme, and that's when I was enjoying it a bit more than the second time than I was the first time, because the more I saw things tap into it, I at least felt a creative vision, even if I think from a directorial point of view, like the actual making of the movie, it feels kind of phoned in, but at least from a conceptual point of view, it feels like there's a good idea there, and it feels like there's like passion behind it.
Like, oh, you have to bring back Matrix 4, how are you gonna do it? You know, okay, well, screw you, Warner Brothers, I'm gonna, you know, make fun of you a little bit in this one. I think it's a neat thing to do. It's just to go meta with it, though.
It is a neat thing to do. I think the core idea is great. It's just like, I just wish it was a better movie. Because it isn't that good. That's the problem, is that the idea there is great, but the movie's not that good.
I think it's pretty good.
You're being far too forgiving. Far too forgiving.
Maybe.
This is something that, like, because all the things I didn't like about it the first time were either equally bad or even worse on the second time, even though there was the one thing that was much better on the second. So, you know, it's too mixed. It's too mixed at best.
I love the moment, especially because it's like right after we get the Warner Brothers line where he's in this like brainstorming meeting with all these young NPCs really who are trying to like, what is the Matrix? What made the Matrix great? Bullet time, or it messed with your mind. And it's just like this repeat, and it's during like the song like from the trailer, the White Rabbit song that everybody likes, and it has this like constant loop that you're watching Neo go through also, and like like everything's become mundane. Like he is trapped in the Matrix because he made the Matrix.
If you were looking forward to seeing Keanu Reeves taking a dump, you get to see that during this montage. You also get to see him pretend to do bullet time in the shower, where he sort of leans back and starts putting his arms back.
I mean, he's wasting a lot in this. He is not the same Neo at all. Yeah. This guy has got, I mean, a lot of it is gaslighting, but like he's...
well, he's taking blue pills. He gets his prescription, and he's just got like a bag of blue pills. So he's just taking blue pills every day.
Yeah, and drinking. Yeah, and he's right. So he's quirky. He's very unsure of himself. He's got like these little ticks that he has to do. It's a very different Neo. Like he's got zero confidence in his film.
I mean, the big plot thing is that he does have like a flash, or he remembers something from his real like past. His therapist, played by Neil Patrick Harris, convinces him that these are delusions. This is not real, and you have to take your medication. You have to like do these exercises to convince yourself that this is fake, and so on and so on. And
I wonder if this is still like a leftover from the whole, trans lens that we watched the first movie with, of someone being told that this is not a real feeling. Like what you have is, you think you're supposed to be somebody else, but it's actually your head that's wrong.
I didn't really think about that too much during this, just because like we've already been through that journey. So this felt a bit different in that it's like,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
little whatever meeting group think project going
Yeah.
on. They do bring that up in as one of the what is the Matrix? Oh, it's trans politics. Oh, it's capitalist exploitation commentary.
Yeah.
All the things we talked about in the first movie review.
Yeah. So yeah, and this is all spurned on because at one point Neo, like clearly in a moment where he remembered who he was, tried to jump off a building, and they sort of like the way the therapist talks about it, it's like he tried to commit suicide. But when we hear Bugs, who saw this was actually the event that kind of woke her up a little bit in the Matrix. When she saw him do this, she said that he didn't fall, implying that he flew, and this was kind of like her awakening moment. It's worth also mentioning this is not actually something that's brought up that much in the movie. It doesn't really seem to matter. But like Neo and Trinity, like don't look like Neo and Trinity to everyone else. They look like he looks like a sort of balding old dude, and she looks like someone else. And I almost started to wonder, like, why would anyone care? No one seems to give a shit.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I think it's more like so people wouldn't recognize him, but the only people that would probably recognize him are like Smith and Trinity, who see him as he is.
Oh, I get. Maybe it's for the people who are coming into the Matrix though, like the hackers and stuff. Like maybe it's them.
Oh yeah, that's true. Because Bugs does say like it took us a long time to find you because you didn't look like you.
So it was more about hiding them from them. Okay. I thought they'd play with that a little bit more, but I guess it was just there to explain how it took so long to find them.
Yeah, because when Neo and Trinity see each other, they see each other how they really are.
Yeah, and the one sort of thing that comes out of it is that when Trinity's talking about looking at the game, she turned to her friend and said, "Hey, do I not look like her?" And the guy laughs, and it's sort of meant to be this like insulting thing.
That's Chad. It's her husband, Chad. What a great name.
But it's meant to be this like almost like laughing because you're not as beautiful as this like fantasy character. But in reality, like she literally just looks a completely different woman.
Yeah.
to him. But like it kind of plays that way, and that's how she kind of like she says, "Oh, I laughed as if it was a joke, but I kind of hated it." And she foreshadows something she does at the end. She says, "I wanted to kick his jaw off," what she actually does to Neil Patrick Harris later on.
I wanted to hurt him just a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's maybe the other thing that I probably didn't like as much in this movie is that the actual like awakening of, and it's at very different points in the movie, but the actual awakening where Neo kind of realizes who he is and remembers, and then when Trinity kind of like realizes who she is and remembers, I don't think those were as interesting as I thought they were going to be. Like I thought there was going to be like good big moments where it's like, oh, now he's Neo again and he remembers, and it kind of felt a bit more just like, oh yeah, he seems to remember now, I guess. Oh, okay, I guess we're just going.
It's different in this film because he gets these flashes, but everyone's telling him no, like it's not what you think it is. It's just you are just so into your game that you think that you are him.
Oh yeah, but I mean,
it is a bit more gradual, and then it's Morpheus that tells him, but he still rejects it.
But I'm saying less about remembering because, like you say, there's already flashes of things happening, and he's confusing it with the game, which is kind of there to confuse him in general. But I mean, like a moment where he believes it, right? The moment where he like says, "Yeah, I am Neo. This is my past."
Yeah, he literally just says like "F it" and takes the pill.
Yeah, there's not like a good moment where he sort of like has to believe, and like so much of that first Matrix movie like was like he had to sort of take these leaps of faith. And probably actually one of the little things in this that I do like quite a bit is that later on when Niobe, we'll get to her properly in a minute, but later on when she says I never believed in the one, I actually kind of like that he just goes, yeah, me neither really, but like, and then to add on to that later on when he's talking about going to save Trinity and people are saying yeah, but she kind of has to want to come out, she has to want to wake up, she can't just take her. He says, well, like I never believed I was the one, but Trinity always believed in me, so now it's my turn to believe in her. I really liked that. I thought that was a nice sort of play on themes from the original movie. Well, I never really like I said this back in like Reloaded or Revolutions, whatever one it was. I did say something along to the effect of I think the romance works in the first movie as the device that it is to like get to the end of the journey, but I don't think it was like strong enough to really base the entire emotional core of the sequels around this romance, because I don't think I care about them as a couple as much as those movies do. And I still have a bit of a problem with that in this one, but I do because it turns Trinity into like and Neo into this like these devices for the theme, which is the creator and the passion of the creator, and that's what the romance is effectively. It worked for me better in this one in that on those terms because it meant something more impersonal.
I love seeing them together in this. Like even in the trailers and stuff, I'm like, oh, there they are, the two of them. Like, it does work for me, and I think I do have. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of nostalgia at play for that, and can't blame me that everybody goes through it. But I was invested in the romance from the trilogy.
Yeah, I wasn't. So like the tease of the romance at first didn't do much for me, and this is probably why it worked a little bit better for me in the second viewing, because I was thinking about it in the thematic terms and what they both represented, which made it far more interesting to me. Because
you weren't like really hurt when like Chad showed up and her kids showed up to like interrupt, Neo.
I just groaned because it was the obvious drama like trick to pull.
I like that agents now are just like these NPCs that are placed.
Oh, no, I'm not done. I'll talk about Trinity still. Like the romance, the first time I watched it, like I didn't feel anything from it because most of the romance I associate with the sequels more than I did the first. Yeah, they kiss and they say I love you to each other at the end of the first movie, but like the actual romance, the longing to be with each other, him taking these big risks to save her, all of that stuff, it's all from Reloaded and Revolutions. So the romance alone, I don't give a shit about it. But on the second viewing, with the like what they both represent, that made it far more interesting, and it kind of like, and that's actually one of the things that I like about the theme is that most one of the things that stops someone from loving and pursuing their passion, it's kids and a spouse who like tie you down to the normal everyday life. So I like that that's kind of what's keeping her away from like being part of like his life again. Is admittedly though, when the husband walked in the first time, I was like, of course we're doing this, and I don't need to go through it. And luckily they didn't really play into it too much. They almost ignore it honestly until like the very end when it kind of comes up again. But yes, but yeah, you were saying about the agents, that some of the rules have changed in the Matrix.
Yeah, I like that they're like NPCs that are put into the lives, that are purposely coded into the lives of I don't know what they're called, sentients or whatever.
They're sleeper agents basically.
Yeah, they're sleeper agents. They can be activated at any time, but mostly they're just programmed to keep you in your routine, to keep you down, to keep you from reaching your potential, much like the Matrix was in the first film. But these ones are done very specifically, and I think
more hands-on.
Yeah, I think his boss is like also a good version of that. Like he just comes off as this person that you don't really want to be around. Not Jonathan Groff, but the other one that's with him throughout the beginning of the film.
Oh, that's not his boss. I think it's maybe like he's like intern or like he's assistant or something.
He's somebody who's close to him. I thought he was like a.
I don't think he ranks
another
him.
Boss.
I think he's the grunt who goes and gets his coffee, and wants to be pally with him, right?
Okay.
He's more like the Klingon, not Klingon Star Trek, like the clinging on friend.
I see. Okay, yeah, he does. Yeah, brown nose to him quite a bit, so maybe you're right. But yeah, it's always like every time like Trinity and Neo like start to get close, somebody like comes in and interrupts them, and it's always like, oh, it's it's work, or yeah, it's my kids, or it's my husband. Like obviously he would have a problem with it, but like. I don't know. I liked the use of the NPCs in this. Like the Matrix is literally just people this time who's keeping you from reaching your potential.
Yeah, and not everyone's an NPC though.
Not everyone. No.
That. It's more like it's almost like every family or so has an NPC like associated with them to keep them kind of in line. We'll talk about more of those themes because I think that comes with Neil Patrick Harris's big speeches at the end. Other rules that have changed in the Matrix: they don't use phones to get in and out anymore. Landlines, they use reflections, mirrors.
They go through the looking glass. Not cool.
Which is okay. I will say this though. I think they could have like made this clearer earlier on than they did, because I felt like because the opening of the movie, which is like we're not actually in the Matrix, we're inside the what did they call it?
Modal.
The modal, right? So they're inside like basically a test beta version of a new game. Which Keanu Reeves has made, and it's just the first Matrix movie where it's right down to the fact that it's the cops coming in to see Trinity and then she runs, but things change, and somehow our hacker characters can also go into this, not just into the Matrix, they can also go into the game within the Matrix.
Yeah.
So just roll with that, sure, right? And
well, they said that they hacked into it,
and that's how the movie starts, right? That's how the movie starts. It starts with Bugs interacting, getting caught, and for some reason young Morpheus is one of the agents, but then he starts to like wake up and he ends up helping Bugs, and they're like, hey, you know, I'm you know, I have this urge, I have to find Neo, that's like the one like impulse I have. And she hugs him and she's like, yes, let's go find Neo, let's go do this. And that's it. But when they escape, they run out of a window, right? Because this is the other thing, is the controller, the one who's like talking to them, like he can actually appear. It isn't like he can't interact with anything in the Matrix like they can, but he like appears almost like a hologram next to them and talks to them. So you see that, but he says jump out this window, and they jump out the window, and then like they shatter through a glass into Matrix code, and then it cuts to like Keanu Reeves properly, and I was like, wait, how did they get out? What just happened there? I don't think, like, it was kind of confusing. And it wasn't until...
I don't think you're supposed to understand it, like, right away. Like, because it's not until later on that they explain it.
Yeah. Which would be fine, but I don't know if I ever felt like... It just felt like there was a lot of individual moments where they started using mirrors. I was like, oh, I guess they use mirrors to get in and out now. I guess that kind of makes sense now. But it felt like something...
When Morpheus shows up to take Neo for the first time... He like points out, oh, this is the mirror that we're going to go through to get out of here. And then when they actually get him out, it's through this tiny mirror in a train.
Well, that was the thing. I never took that as him showing that's how we get out. I took that as him showing him, look, see, Matrix, not real. Like,
oh, okay.
Because he's not believing him. He's not believing that this weirdo in the bathroom who's shown up in the bright yellow suit is talking sense. So
Morpheus
he's like,
is got so much style in this. I love all of his outfits. And he's kind of like the comic relief in this too. He's very funny.
Yeah. Although him like doing the like, he does the line that Morpheus does in the first Matrix, and then sort of laughs and goes, "Oh, I couldn't resist doing the reference." I'm like,
at last.
But yeah, so I mean, honestly, the setting up of that new rule was a major quibble. I'm not saying that's a big complaint, but it was just something that wasn't clear at first to me.
Okay.
But so yeah, that's the big things mainly that's changed in the world. In terms of like stuff that I feel is a bit wonky plot wise, I guess that thematically it's just a case of like Neo won't have his full powers until he's completely like until the creator and the passion are completely reunited. But I do think it's kind of weird how he conveniently has all of his bullet stopping powers and he can do, you know, waves of blast and stuff. He just can't fly, and they do like a little joke moment out of it where like the one guy who's kind of a fanboy is like, hey, can you still fly? And he tries to do it and it just doesn't take off, and he's like, nope, that's not happening. And I'm like, but why? You've got all the other powers. Why is that the only one that's not back?
I think it's interesting that his powers only seem to come back when he is going to save Trinity. Whenever like, because even when he's like sort of training with Morpheus, like, okay, we're going to put you in a very familiar situation also so that the fans can have something, but or Peter can roll his eyes at. But like, and it's not until like he's getting his butt kicked until he says, you need to survive so you could save Trinity, so you could save her. And that's when he's able to activate and like causes the explosions and stuff. And even in the real world, like things are exploding.
No, honestly, this might be something where with more viewings, not that I'm going to watch it again because I want to, but like this is the sort of thing.
You never know.
But this is the sort of thing that maybe, yeah, there is kind of like a method to the madness that kind of does work if you like think about it enough. But it was the sort of thing where I was like, but why? Why can't you fly still? Like you've got everything else is back.
You know what's interesting is that he never uses a gun in this. Neo never uses a gun in this film. That
might be a very... Because, you know, a lot of bad things have happened in the last 20 years, and I do wonder if there's an intentional choice to have Neo and even Trinity,
not look cool with a gun. Yeah.
Even Trinity. Does Trinity use a gun? I don't think she does.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't think either Neo or Trinity ever use a gun. So...
she does on Neil Patrick Harris at the end. No, wait, she doesn't. She just kicks him. Never mind.
Yes,
that wasn't her.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's like a huge statement or just a really nice little detail, which is like, you know what, I don't want my two main characters like sort of glorifying that. I mean, even though there's lots of other characters, you know, doing a lot of slow motion gunplay and stuff.
I think it's also just reinforcing the fact that this is not the cool Neo from the former Matrix. This is a very different version of him that's been defeated.
Sure. Before I forget, Christina Ricci had a cameo like earlier.
Oh yeah, remember when we heard she was cast?
I actually didn't, and to be honest, it took me because it's been so long since I've seen her in something. I'm like, is that Christina Ricci? Because I've
Yeah,
it's been
she looks
like
awesome.
it's been like a decade since I saw her in something. So I'm like, is that Christina Ricci? She looks kind of like her.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
She's
was.
still all eyes.
Oh yeah,
and
her
round
eyes
face.
like penetrate your soul. It's
Yeah.
like I don't know, scary.
Yeah, she's great.
So yeah, so the first chunk of the movie is like, you know, eventually Morpheus and Bugs show up to get to Neo, and they take him on a bit of an adventure. They can sort of teleport through either reflections of something to get to like other. So they end up on a train, which is where they end up going through the little mirror.
I think they end up using doors again, like in the Reloaded.
They do that, yeah, they did that early on. Is that how they got to the train as well? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
Was
They
it?
just
Okay.
end up going through a door.
Yeah, because I remember him doing that because that's when Morpheus grabs Bugs for the first time to save her. It's like in the key shop. He kind of like,
Right. Yeah.
And I got really worried. See, when into the key shop, I was like, if they bring up this key maker again, I'm going to be so pissed. Stupid MacGuffin bullshit.
Whatever.
So yeah, so there's some like fight, and the fighting for the most part, like honestly, all the cool moments in the action are in the trailer. It's mainly Bugs doing a couple of funny jumps, fun jumps.
Right.
But that's basically it.
Her little parkour moves.
But
You know, one thing about about the actress is
Mhm.
that if you close your eyes, she sounds exactly like Gemma Chan. Do you know who she is?
I don't know who she is. What you're saying is she's got an English accent.
She sound well, not just English, but like really breathy.
Okay.
Like they come from the same town. They must.
Maybe they do. I don't know.
Or one's just doing an impression of the other.
I don't know. I mean, the last time I saw Henwick, she was doing an American accent, if I remember right. So this is the first time I've heard her with well, I mean, it may not be her natural voice. I mean, because sometimes like
Maybe she is doing a Gemma Chan impression.
because
then.
for like I watched, of course, the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and obviously Giles on that, played by Anthony Stewart Head. Like when I heard him in an interview, like outside
Tony
the,
Head.
sure, Tony, if you want to call him that. But when I heard him in an interview, like eventually he sounds a lot more like I don't know, casual and like Londoner. You know, whereas as Giles, he's putting on like a more posh, like middle-aged man, like I'm a voice of authority kind of voice. But he was so good at it that I never questioned that it wasn't just how he speaks. But then you hear him in real life, and he's like, you know,
Hello, governor.
not quite that, but yeah, it's closer to that than I had originally suspected. So it's possible. So yeah, they even have a moment where they're watching footage from the first movie.
From the game.
Technically from the game, but it's the first movie.
Mhm.
Yes, let's watch some footage that is much better shot than anything in this movie. That's a good idea. Point out the differences. But yeah, so of course they wake him up, but unlike the original film, when they do wake up Neo in the real world, it's not in one of the farms. It's like there's just two pods. It's just him and Trinity because they're in like a special place where they've resurrected them, and we learn a bit more about this later. And we learn and there's some new things in the real world. Before we even get to the new city, we have the fact that, you know, we set up in the last, and one of the few things that I liked about the last movie was the idea that there's good programs, and that's, you know, what Oracle was, that's what the little girl is, blah blah blah. And the idea that some programs have actually like left the machine world and the machine city and come to like just integrate with humans.
They also want autonomy.
Yeah. And that, you know, that's what Bug says is like, you know, you changed the definition of what our side is. It's not humans versus machines. It's, you know, free lives versus like the lives that are happy to be trapped in the Matrix. That's what it is. And of course, we also hear alternatively that Neil Patrick Harris is so good at like controlling people and convincing them that this is what they want, that the numbers of people wanting to leave are an all-time, like his numbers are so good, right? No one's leaving. And he's even getting more juice out of all the bodies because they're also stimulated. And even that was like, I wouldn't say this is a huge theme in the movie compared to the main one that I was talking about, but he does kind of touch on a couple of things there. He talks about using fiction to control people and how there has to be an element on that. And obviously that was in the first movie too, the idea that like it couldn't be perfect. There had to be some misery and some unhappiness to make it balanced. But this felt like how politics uses, like, you know, quote unquote fake news to try and like drive the population to certain things.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a little touch of that in what he was talking about when he was saying how he was, I control the people with a bit of fiction.
It's kind of it's kind of Monsters Inc. also, where like we can get more energy from people if we cause like stimulation to where they're afraid or if they're in conflict.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that, but I'm impressed. That was not bad. I was like, this is a bold place to go. Where are you going with this? But not bad.
I know my Disney. Okay.
Not bad.
Yeah, so they're always trying to like stimulate the minds more. So like they want people to be, they want people to be not just oppressed, but like afraid and, you know, have these wants and desires and they just need stimulation. Yeah. The brain needs to be stimulated for more energy.
Yeah, so I mean, and all that stuff's fine. These are all nice little details. So we have actual robots who help them, like robots like come and get Neo out. He actually rides like a sort of like a fly robot thing that like takes him out. And he's sort of like looking at the machine city and stuff. And then we also find out that the programs that are just programs, they actually get to interact with the real world. Not obviously, it's like we saw Smith possess someone in like the sequels, but here they have like a nanobot thing where it'll like.
Well, it's the thing from the end of the third movie, right? That face that appears. It's that technology, I think.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's based it's based on that. Yeah. So presumably the machines that defected and like came to live with the humans, they brought this knowledge and tech with them and said, "Hey, we can do this."
What I don't understand about it is like why they are still limited by gravity with that technology. Because you see Morpheus like in that form, like climbing things, like he's really struggling and pulling himself up. But like you're just like floating bots. Like why would that be a thing?
Maybe you're not entirely floating. Maybe like because they still have to walk around, so maybe it is sort of based upon that they're all sitting on top of each other, kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure exactly what the rules are.
Maybe they all like sort of because I think they even mentioned like magnetized at one point, so maybe they're all just like magnetic together, so that they still have to pull each other up, like you know,
maybe.
Climbing.
I was just confused by that moment. Like, can't you just like apparate as full-bodied Morpheus at the top of this thing? You don't have to climb.
I mean, there's an argument to be said that they should just like form like more of a ball of little nanobots that roll up instead of like try to climb like a human form. But yeah
maybe.
Because it is a little bit T-1000 in a sense where like when they form, it's like it comes up out of a puddle of nanobots. So yeah. Maybe there's a little...
Well, yeah, maybe they are limited by gravity then.
Yeah. Maybe there's a little inconsistency there. But yeah, so he meets the new crew. And this is actually something that I wish I didn't have to complain about, but I need to, is they introduce a whole new crew of characters on this ship, and I couldn't name you one of them. Other than Bugs, obviously, who's the main one. But like...
Yeah, Bugs, she's a good character.
Every other one that they introduce you to, and there's even one that they point out is this total fan, because when I said there's a fanboy later on, I'm not talking about this guy. There was another guy that's introduced to him in the city who becomes like the main fanboy guy. There's a guy on the ship who's like, "Oh, I'm like obsessed with your life and like I'm an expert.
He's
it's
like
nice to meet you."
A neologist or something.
they call him something with that. And it's like, okay, we're setting up someone who like, and this makes sense. It's 60 years later. There's all these people. Neo and Trinity have not aged as much as they should have, probably because they keep being
rebuilt. Yeah.
But. So it makes sense, but like, so I kind of like this scene because it was like, oh, okay, this is kind of like the first movie, but in a good way where it's like, okay, this is the new crew, we can get to meet these characters, get to know them, and then like they spend so little time with them that like, even though they're all, they pretty much.
I can point them out by hairdo, but not by name.
They pretty much. I mean, I don't even need to remember their names because I'm bad with names anyway. But like, just like if I could remember who's who based on their personality or like what their function is or something, but none of that.
There's no cipher. There's no switch.
yeah. Like there's like the one guy. There's the one red shirt dude in the first movie who is the one with the ponytail, who's the most forgettable. But everyone else, I can remember. Yeah, I can remember their look. I can remember at least something about them. Whereas here it just kind of feels like, and there's a couple of scenes where like one will come and talk to Neo, where she's like, "Hey, I was inspired by Trinity," and I'm like, "Who are you?"
She's the one with the tattoos on her chest.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like,
I don't know anything else about her.
they don't do anything to make me care about any of these new characters.
Yeah, this crew is whatever, with the exception of Bugs.
Yeah, but Bugs is fine. I have no problem with Bugs. She's a likable enough character.
She sounds exactly like Gemma Chan, and she does cool parkour. That's it.
At the same time, I don't think she gets enough to do to make her like a super like engrossing. Like she doesn't really have an arc or anything like that. She's just kind of there to serve the plot.
Yeah, she's a exposition dump also.
Which is a shame, and it would be nice if one of the new I mean, I get that it's always going to focus on Neo and Trinity for this movie, but it would be nice if one of the new characters also got an arc, just to like sort of make them feel as important. But it never really does that, which is a shame.
Yeah, something like what Morpheus had in the first one.
Yeah, maybe. So they go to Io, right? Because Zion's not a thing anymore. Io is a city that the humans and the machines who joined up with them built together, and it's got a fake atmosphere that they've got going, and they're growing fruit using fancy tech and stuff. And
were you glad that you didn't have to go back to Zion? Because I sort of was.
I was definitely glad of that.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm glad you guys have a new thing.
I'm glad there was no council. Unfortunately, though, we did have the old age
easily
makeup.
The worst part of the film.
Yeah. So Niobe is in this movie. It is Jada Pinkett Smith, but of course, 60 years have passed, and she's not been recreated multiple times. So
she's not good at acting old.
She's not. She's very distracted in this movie. It's rough. It's very rough.
They should have just recast, honestly.
They should have just recast her, but they didn't want to, obviously. And she delivers a bunch of exposition. She doesn't want Neo to go back. And this is where some of it got really messy to me in the storytelling, because I don't think it ever clearly really explained why she didn't want Neo to like try and get Trinity. Or, you know, like she said something vague about, oh, maybe like it'll bring us too much trouble. But like, I don't like know if it really established that properly.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. She was upset about it, and then she wasn't quite upset when they escaped. She's mad at, I don't know. She's acting like the council in the sequel, but as one person. So she's kind of got like all the perspectives in one.
She's flip-flopping between scenes just to go with whatever the plot needs of her right now.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And the funny thing about this all as well is that like they end up having to like escape with Neo to go back and try and get Trinity pretty quickly. So it almost felt like we could have just not came to Io first.
Well, even if we did, like, there's no reason to have Naomi there.
Yeah. So that was a bit weird. Because they go back to the Matrix, obviously. They go back up in the ship. They're not supposed to, but they do it anyway. And this is the Merovingian rears his stupid head.
Don't you love what they do with him, though?
No, I hate that he's there. I don't care what they did with him.
I love it. I think it's so funny, especially like if you like listen to fans talk about the Merovingian, like they love him. Fans love the Merovingian because
what a bunch of tossers. Because
he has all this like cool lore inside the Matrix that you can explore if you're like a big fan of it. You can like, you know, pick it apart and it's almost like Lana Wachowski's like, oh, you guys like the Merovingian? Well, we're going to turn him into a homeless person. He's going to be just covered in garbage.
He also yells like some meta lines as well.
Totally. Yeah.
I missed some of them in the first viewing, but he yells something about reboots and things or something like that.
I better be in the sequel or the spin-off or something. Yeah. I thought it was funny. Like I love that he's in this and that he is just total trash.
No,
in this
I
one.
think this is one of the worst scenes in the whole movie. Partly because of him, partly because it's an extended action scene that's just really bad because it's just a bunch of crap fighting, and partly also because Smith just shows up and like has a like fight with Neo. This is where it really shows just how much poorer it is to like the previous film, even the sequels. Is that this fight is just like it's running on fumes. Like they punch a couple of tiles off a wall to make you think it's like the old Matrix movie, but that's all. That's all they do. Everything else is just like, eh.
Yeah, I can't remember the reason for him to show up in this other than to say like, because he doesn't actually, no one really like defeats the other one, right? Because Smith doesn't want Neo to be hooked up into the Matrix again.
He just blasts him away. And again, I got a little conflicted here, not trying to understand like why he cared about him coming for Trinity, because because basically he wants revenge himself on Neil Patrick Harris, because he's the new like creator, he's the new person running the Matrix.
New architect.
Yeah, for lack of a better term, he's the new architect. And it's like, okay, fair enough, but I don't understand why. If anything, Neo trying to get Trinity would distract him enough that you'd have a better chance of getting in and having your revenge.
Yeah, because he says like he doesn't want Neo to come back into the Matrix because he's only free when Neo isn't there.
And he's quite he's quite happy to be free and like take over the Matrix on his own. He doesn't want Neo to be around. So all of this like just felt like big confrontation for exposition's sake, but it all felt a bit convoluted.
I like the Merovingian showing up. I like that he is just I don't know, like this thing that fans love, that he's been turned into something that is like, what the hell is
well,
this?
as someone who thinks the Merovingian might be the worst thing about Matrix Reloaded, I am delighted that he is made a joke of in this movie.
Well, he's also there for the meta. Like, he's there to say the original films had class and character, and
one of them did.
All this new stuff is is cheap and trivial and stuff like that. So he is there to sort of build on the commentary of the overall theme of the film.
He is, but I think he's shit enough that I would still prefer him not to be there. On new stuff not being good though, see the effect on Smith. Do you know when he does that fast movement thing where he kind of shimmers? Mm-hmm. That looks so shit in this one compared to what
I thought it looked fine.
That looked nasty. Looked terrible. Anyway,
it's weird that that's like the only bullet time we really get, because in this film, bullet time is more everything's just slowed down.
Well, yeah. Well, there's one big exception, which is in the very next scene, which is the Trinity scene in the garage. I mean,
isn't that the one I'm talking about though?
Well,
like when
but Neil Patrick Harris even says, "I'm using bullet time against you." Isn't that ironic?
But it's not like the usual.
And then Alanis Morissette. That's what they should have done. They should have had Alanis Morissette playing when he said that. Isn't it ironic? It's like rain on your wedding day.
No.
That's not ironic. It's unfortunate, but it's not ironic. It's
a contrast between expectation and reality. We all know this.
Yeah, and this did present a plot problem for me. This next scene. So Neo goes to see Trinity, but it turns out Trinity's not really there, or at the very least,
she's there, but he like rewinds her or something.
Yeah. So Neil Patrick Harris has a cat called Deja Vu. Get it? So he deja vus it and resets the scene. So Neo has to watch her walk in and then watch himself, and then it ultimately ends up with this bullet time moment where they shoots a gun at her, and the bullet's slowly going towards her, and Neo's not quite quick enough to get there. Right. My problem with this scene isn't necessarily the scene itself, is that it makes Neil Patrick Harris so powerful that I do not buy that he doesn't just win in every other scene after this. I don't understand how he loses later on if he can just do this.
Because Agent Smith is faster. It's Agent Smith that defeats him.
I guess. I don't know. But even before that, though, I'm like, why is this fight with all these guys in this coffee shop even happening? You can just rewind time. The second Trinity says something that goes against what you wanted. I
don't know. Maybe he has to be there. Maybe he has to be close to them.
He was there. He was sitting right there with them.
In the coffee shop?
Yeah, in the scene with all the guards and like this. It's the big ultimatum.
He does go into bullet time there, doesn't he?
He can hit bullet time, but he doesn't reverse anything, no.
Okay.
That scene showed that he can reverse time. That's a pretty big, powerful thing for a character to be able to do, and then just to not use later. Right?
Is it him or is it the cat that does it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But he had the cat to begin with, did he not? Like in the start of the scene.
Yeah, he does.
So I'm just like, it's just it's again, it's writing yourself into this corner where this just creates like a weird plot hole later on. I'm like, why isn't he just doing this immediately the second he doesn't get his way?
Yeah, I didn't even think about it, but yeah, maybe you're right. I'll have to watch it again and figure it out.
Don't be cruel to yourself, Tara.
I like the film.
Don't be cruel to yourself.
It's not bad.
Oh dear. So this is the thing. So they come back out, and there's like very little like effort to coming back out. It just cuts to them already like on their way back to Io, or they're already on Io even, and. Oh, in fact, no, yeah, because when the other ship shows up and says, "Hey, like we need to go. The Sentinels, so you're either going to die or come back and get court-martialed." And Niobe's pissed. Niobe's just livid that this all happened. And then out of nowhere, this big moth robot appears, and she's like, "No, it's a friend. It's a friendly robot." Which, of course, it's a friendly robot. It's in the city with all the other friendly robots. Why would they all assume this is a hostile?
And it's got blue light, so we know blue is nice.
But they all react as if it's like an assassination attempt or something. Like they're all ready to pull their guns and
It
weapons.
looks like a manta ray.
And she's like, "No, it's a friend." I'm like, "Yeah, like, wouldn't you know, like, if a hostile robot like entered the city by this point?" Like, I don't know. Anyway, and it's like that's a friend, and it turns out this is actually the little girl from Revolutions who's now grown up and has been a friend to the humans in all this time, which makes some amount of sense. Okay, this is where things get more convoluted. Because the motivation change here for Niobe, like, I just don't get at all. So, Matrix. Neo is like, I need to go back to the Matrix. Like, basically, this whole new Matrix is built upon, like, it all stemming from Neo and Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants them back in there. And the higher-ups wanted to reboot the Matrix to its previous version, but he said, no, Neo will be back. And Neo's like, yeah, I'm going to go back because Trinity's there. Like I'm never not going to go back. Right? And then it turns out that this little girl was like, yeah, because my dad leaked the plans of this resurrection thing to the humans or whatever, like Neil Patrick Harris killed him, and because of that, so she effectively just wants revenge for the death of her parents. So I'm like, okay, but what got me though is that when she's building up the start, because we get it in two halves. In the first half, she's not explained her motivation yet, and that's fine because she explains it in the second half, but she says, this creates a very special and unique opportunity, even though it's like next to impossible and we're going to need a miracle, right? And it cuts immediately to Niobe, who has been dead set against them going back and trying to rescue Trinity and like altering anything. It cuts to her in front of like all the captains and being like, I need a volunteer. And like, and there's a bit of funny stuff with her and Bugs, but then like all the other captains volunteer as well. And she's like, this is a very important mission, and like, why are y'all, this is like possibly suicidal, why are y'all volunteering for this? And it's like, because if you believe in it, then we'll do it. So it's like, okay, something's changed in Niobe's mind. Something has monumentally made her believe that they have to do this mission. And it cuts back to the meeting with her and the girl from 3 and Neo and Bugs and whoever. And then she explains her motivation is, well, this is a chance for me to get revenge for my father and my mother's death. Like, this is what he did to them. And I got to the end of the scene and went, yeah, but what changed Niobe's mind? What changed their mind?
Well,
what?
I imagine it's just having her be involved with it is what changed her mind. No? So she's sort of like a new oracle. Like, it'd be enough to change maybe a human's mind.
Oh, I don't buy it. Like, no? I was so, like, especially in the second viewing, because I was like, oh, maybe I just missed a line. Maybe I just missed something. And the second viewing, I'm like, this does not explain why she changes her mind.
Okay. I mean, I just sort of thought, well, I mean, she must have a lot of respect for this new oracle, and so if this is what they want, then that's going to be what she wants. Dare
I say, if you cut, much like Smith to a large extent, barring maybe one thing at the end with him showing up to kind of save the day, that you'd have to rewrite, could you just cut all of Niobe's stuff out of this movie and the movie would function completely fine?
I mean, probably. I'm sure you could have some sort of conflict still without Niobe in the film.
Yeah, well, that's the weird thing about the stakes going into this final act, this big mission. Like, okay, we're going to sneak into where Trinity's been held. They're going to do something where they extract her in a different way, where it doesn't involve a pill. But to do that, we have to kind of have her share a mind with someone. So Bugs kind of volunteers for that. They never really set up like the dangers of this though. They never set up like, okay, what will happen if she doesn't accept the new mind, or what will happen if this goes wrong. Like, they kind of just throw it out there that this has to happen.
Yeah, I think
don't really expand on it.
The danger is that if Trinity chooses not to go, then Neo hooks back up into the Matrix, and then all is lost again.
Oh no, that's in the larger scale. I'm talking specifically about this thing where she has to go into Bugs' mind for like a minute. Like,
they say it's dangerous, but I don't remember what the cost might be.
They don't say what the cost is. They just kind of throw it out there, and that's my problem. Like, the larger scale of it being that, yeah, okay, Neo will, like, because they're basically going to kill Neo by unplugging him if like, rather than let him get Neo, if Trinity makes the wrong choice. If she says no, it doesn't want to come out.
Well, I thought it was that they're going to plug him back into the Matrix and then turn him back into Tom Anderson. And then, but if she does, then they risk rebooting the whole Matrix again.
No, 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 no,
to the
no.
old system.
No. I think you misunderstood something here, because the whole threat is that they don't say this to him, obviously, but the whole plan is, or no, he does say it to him. Sorry, Neo says to him that if you don't let us walk out of here, like they'll unplug me and I will die, and you won't get me back. Like he says that.
Right.
And there's even a moment where like one of the characters on the ship's going up to him and like, they're ready to yank the cable out. They're like, right, it's time. We need to kill Neo. So that's kind of the threat of that they're given to him.
Okay. Well, I thought it was because Neil Patrick Harris needs Neo to be plugged back into the Matrix. So what motivation does he have to go along with this plan unless he gets something out of it? The threat is that if they attack him, then they'll pull the plug.
Yes.
Right?
I
Because
concur, yes.
Okay, that's it. Yeah, so the overall goal for Neil Patrick Harris is to plug Neo back into the Matrix because he produces so much energy that runs the whole like system.
Well, I don't know if it's energy specifically or if it's more just that the system's built around like them kind of being at the center of it. Because he says something, because he explains it at one point in the monologue where he's like, oh, like, if I let you and Trinity get together, it just created all these disastrous results. But if I let you exist close to each other and you can have a little bit of the temptation, but you don't actually get to unite and like, mega powers like combine, then like it's actually really good for sustaining the Matrix. Maybe it is just pure energy, but I got the vibe it was more, I don't know. Maybe it is energy, but I thought it was something more like ethereal than that or something. I don't know. But regardless, I mean, this is the thing. This plan at the end of the movie doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me in multiple ways. Because at one point, so they go to the coffee shop, right? And Trinity isn't shown up yet. She's going to arrive there soon. And he makes this whole thing with Neil Patrick Harris. He says, if you don't let us walk out, or if you attack, they'll pull me out. And then Neil Patrick Harris says something, well, what's to stop me if doing blah, blah, blah. And then Neo says, because this is what will happen if you don't. And then in walks like all of the other Matrix characters, all the hackers, right? And their shades and stuff. And like almost to imply like, well, I've got an army with me. And this is also where I went, yeah, but Neil Patrick Harris can just rewind time and like kill them one by one. So why is this like, I never understood that part of it. I was like, why is this threatening to him in any way? He's too powerful for that to be a big deal. But like, so the biggest problem I have with the whole third act though is just that the stakes feel very vague in terms of like, okay, I get that he wants Trinity back, right? And on a thematic level, I appreciate that side of it. I appreciate that this is about the creator and the passion reuniting and like sort of someone rediscovering their passion is kind of the core theme. That's cool. But all of the actual kind of action and what will happen to the Matrix if they do reunite and get out, like all of it just seems to be bad for Neil Patrick Harris's control and not bad for anyone else. So the stakes, relatively speaking, feel quite small because it's really just about him. And while he's entertaining enough when he's on screen, I don't know if they ever actually set him up enough where I like care about beating him in the same way that Smith was such a great villain in the first movie. Because he was so cold.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's hard to compete with Smith.
Yeah, because Smith was such a cold character, and when he did sort of like kind of show a bit of personality and talked about how much he hated humans, and like it did feel like really villainous, and it felt like, oh no, we have to beat him because he's basically saying we're a worthless species, and like it's almost about proving the value of humanity. So it felt like a big, like thematically a big scale, but also a big scale, and we're literally saving lives.
This villain is very much like, we just want the batteries.
Yeah. This is, and I guess it ties into the theme that he's effectively just like this corporate douche who's got good numbers and wants to keep his good numbers up. Like
wants to keep his labor force, even if it means exploitation.
Yeah. But the action scene in the coffee shop though, when it all kicks off, is just kind of shit because it's like far too many people in a really confined space, and you don't really see much.
Well, I like that it is smaller though. Like it's not the big anime fights that we got in the other two sequels, especially the third one.
I agree. I don't want a big anime fight. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I mean that clear. You can have a good intimate high stakes fight between two people. but this is like a really confined space with like 50 people in it, so it's just like
it's enough to feel like really claustrophobic, and like when Trinity and Neo are actually reaching for each other, that there is, you know, resistance there.
It's enough that you can't really focus on anything in particular, except Neo and Trinity. Like, it's all just kind of a mess of bodies.
Yeah, that's the important part.
You know, and yeah, she has her moment where she says, you know, don't call him, like, because she's actually saying no, that she doesn't believe she's Trinity, and she's walking out, and that's why they're about to pull the plug on Neo, and then, like, she, you know, I think it's the husband keeps calling her Tiffany, and it's like, don't call me effing Tiffany, my name's Trinity, which, oh, okay, all right, is there an okay moment?
I like the moment.
But yes, so sure enough, they end up going on a bit of a chase where all of these goons are chasing them. You know, it's the little ideas that I think I like more than anything else. Like, all of the sleeper agents all like wake up and they're all living in the apartments across, like, around the street. So they all just start
jumping. It's a fun moment, actually.
Yeah, they all just start jumping out of their windows to try and land on.
They're kamikaze.
Neo and Trinity.
I love that the one woman who's like asleep with her husband, and he wakes up. She's like, "What's wrong, honey?" And he just leaps out the window, and she's screaming. I'm so glad we got that shot in there.
It's all. I think it's almost like, this is the weird thing. It's going to sound like I'm saying, like, I don't know if I associate Matrix with comedy. I agree it was funny. I don't know if I want that kind of funny in a Matrix movie, but I mean, that's a wider debate.
It's a very different Matrix film.
It's a very different Matrix. But I associate Matrix with being this sort of moody, like, character, like, coming of age, not coming of age, but like character discovery film. It's not something I associate with being humorous, but I mean, it was funny. Like, I'll give it to you. So. Most of the chase is just whatever, like, you know, like some of the side characters get into a bit of trouble, so Bugs like jumps back in once they've rescued Trinity, and like helps save them, but like you don't really know any of these characters by name barely, so like she hugs one, and I think I read a theory online that there might have been like a subplot between her and this other character, maybe romantically, and that's why it was like, because she made the point of going, oh, like it was, I want to say Alexei, I want to say that was the name. But she says, "Oh, Lexi, I saved you," in the hug, and I was like, "Oh, yes, this character who I remember so fondly from the rest of the film." But maybe there was a subplot there that was meant to build them up as either a friendship or a relationship or something. But so the big climax is they get to a rooftop. There's helicopters coming after them. Neo's like bullet, like, blocking them all. He's got his like force field up, and he's like, "Stop! No bullets hitting us!" And then he like redirects a rocket from one helicopter to the other one, but that like knocks them across the roof. They're badly damaged. They're hurt, and it's like, well, there's only one thing we can do is jump. So they grab each other's hand, not knowing if they're going to survive. And
they kiss first.
Oh, they kiss first. Sorry, and they take a leap of faith. And here we have a bit of a twist, which thematically I understand and like. Plot wise, you can kind of like establish why, but what happens is that they're falling through the air and then they stop, but it's not Neo that's flying, it's Trinity who's like holding him up. And
I love it.
I mean, I like it. I like it in the thematic sense, because it's like, okay, the whole idea of this is that she's represents the passion of the creator, and that the passion is what lets you fly, right? That's what makes you feel like you're free.
Saves him.
Yeah, and it's what saves him as well. Yeah, quite right. So, the passion saves him when he's at his lowest, and he's all that works. That's really beautiful. I like that bit of writing. It's kind of inspired. Plot wise, why can Trinity now fly and has the powers of the One? I actually did think of the answer. I think it's because, well, this new version of the Matrix is built around both of them, so theoretically she can tap into the same type of powers that he has. That works. Okay, I'll go with it. But
she's the one. I mean, they're both the one. They're both flying at the end. I mean, she's just the one that's has awoken first. So, and it kind of mirrors the first film, like when Neo dies, or when Thomas Anderson dies, and she says, "You can't die because you're the one. Because I knew I would fall in love with the one, and I'm in love with you. So you must be the one." And she kisses him, and that's what brings him back as Neo, where he says, "You know, that's my name." And is able to like fully reach his potential. So in this one, they kiss at the top of the building before they jump, and I think that's also to be the spark, the what kicks off her realizing who she really is.
Would it have been nice if she didn't fully know who she was until after the kiss? Like,
I mean, like, maybe she sort of believed it, but she didn't really believe it until she knew she was in love with him.
I don't know. She said, my name's Trinity. Like, she's kind of, and I think maybe that's part of why it feels a bit weak to me is the realizations of these characters, because they don't immediately have questions or ask. She doesn't ask about Morpheus or anything like that. She doesn't like say anything about like. She just kind of goes into action mode, and that's just it. Like, so we never really get a chance of insight into like what she's thinking.
It's her kids, right? It's her kids and her husband who are like, I just can't. I can't leave them. I can't. They need me. They need me more than you need me. And then she really. I mean, they talk about it in the beginning of the film when they first sit down and talk, Trinity and Neo, and she's like, I don't know, like, how it happened or when I decided or even if I wanted children, but I'm here and I have this responsibility and it's prevented me from having a life. And that's, the cost of having a family. But
but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about after she's realized who she is. We never get insight into what she's thinking, or there's never a moment for her to reflect on any other characters.
It's just the reason that she says no in the beginning. She says, no, I'm not going to take the red pill. I'm going, because her family are literally like right on top of her saying, come to us.
But I'm not questioning that. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about like feeling that she actually remembers anything like after, other than the fact that she says she's Trinity and then gets on a bike and starts like doing actiony stuff. There's nothing to sort of like have a sense of like she does remember the event. She does remember the other characters.
I think it's the kiss that does it.
And
she kisses him because that's what the whole trilogy like ended up being about, was about their love.
There's not a single hint before the kiss that she's not like completely Trinity already.
I don't know. Like it's still.
What I'm suggesting is what I'm suggesting is the moment where she defies and says, "I'm not going with my husband. I'm going to believe in this stranger Neo, right? Because I feel some attachment." I'm saying, I think I would prefer that to be a bit more less certain and more of a leap of faith, and then the kiss itself can be the like I'm effing Trinity. Like I'm back again, right? I know who I am. I remember the events of Matrix 1, 2, 3. I remember dying. I remember this man, like, everything he did. Like, I don't know. I'm saying that might, I think, just have worked a little bit better in selling the kiss. Because you're saying the kiss is what made her realize she's the one, or made her believe in herself enough that this triggered that part of her. And I'm just suggesting that, maybe you could have, like, really emphasized that by having it really, like, because there's no doubt before that moment, really. There's not really any doubt with her before that. It's not like Neo throughout the film where he's trying to use powers and it's not working here or there, or he's doubting himself and saying, maybe I can't be who I used to be. Like, he has all those moments, and then never has the. And again, thematically, I like that it's not him that has that moment. It's Trinity.
Yeah, I mean, they both sort of take the leap of faith off the building together after the kiss, and it's not him that is able to fully like get into it. It's her. She's the one who needed this the most, and he believed in her. And
I like that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of other better things that they could have done with her before that point. Like I like that ending. I'm saying that.
All right.
Before that, there's more that they could have done with her, and just building up to her. Like, I think that's why when I watched it the first time, I kind of almost just sort of went, really? Like, and not because I didn't like the idea of Trinity getting the powers, but just because I didn't feel like the movie built up to it. Like, I didn't feel like it built up to, like, swerving. And part of it's because, well, her snippets and the themes are great because of what she represents, and I love all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough of her to really build her own character arc, per se, in the film, as much as Neo, because she is kind of, like, I don't want to say a plot device, but she is like the person who is at a distance who we're trying to get to, so there's not as much of her.
Yeah, we spend all the time with Neo.
So we don't really get a chance to sort of go through an arc with her in the same way that we do with the protagonist. And that presents some interesting problems, which is, I guess, why I'm saying that I almost would have liked a bit more time between like her switching to like working with Neo, and then like going through a little bit of like maybe some doubt, and then like having herself be asserted by his support. Because, like I say, one of my favorite lines.
That she wants it more, though.
One of my favorite lines in the film, like I said, is when Neo says, "It's my turn to believe in her." So I would have liked that to have played out in those like scenes building up to her, like, achieving this like new power. Like,
okay.
You know, that kind of idea.
Sure. I do think that she wants it more though. Like, cause even though we don't follow her character, we follow Neo. Every time they interact, she is at a low point and she wants something more. She wants what she sees in the video game. She wants everything to be real. And we don't really get that as much from Neo. Neo is always resistant. So I do think it makes sense that she's the one that gets, you know, that triggers these powers that Neo has in the first film.
Okay. I mean, it's one of those things where I think there's good ideas in here, and I really like the core theme that it's playing with. But it's all execution. It's all execution, and some of it's like just, you know, mediocre directing, mediocre action, like a lot of these more technical things. But as far as the script goes, I think it's like getting a better sense of like what she's going through. Like if you were going to like cut out things like Niobe, you're going to cut out things like Smith. What I would add more time to is the period of time between her saying either I am Trinity or that I am going to go with Neo to the point where she unlocks her powers. Like give her a little bit of something in there. Give her a little bit of an arc where it's not just an action scene. There's actually some growth or some like understanding of. It sort of like feels like it's a payoff as opposed to, because my first viewing it did feel out of nowhere. And thematically, it worked for me much better than the second time because I had time to think about the themes. I had time to think about how it fits with what the story was doing with Neo and Trinity. But that first time, I did kind of like react a little bit more. Oh, this feels kind of random, and like why? And it really was, you know. So I'm glad I did watch it twice because it did lead to a better appreciation of why that does happen. But again, that's something where I think a better script would have solved that on a first viewing. Like I think while I do like what it does, I think it's a fault of the film that I didn't get the point in the first viewing.
Okay. Well, we've reached the end.
I'm sorry that you want me to not be so negative, but like if
I knew you would be. It's
I like if the movie's not that good, I have to, like, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I'm not gonna lie either, and I'm gonna say it's a pretty good film.
Okay. Well, it's not quite there. I mean, I have one more important scene.
Okay.
Because
yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah, I mean, kind of glossed over Smith like showing up and like shooting Neil Patrick Harris, and then
he is the Deus Ex Machina,
and then he just leaves. Yeah. Stop saying. You keep saying that as if it's a big deal. It doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, it's just clever.
It's not clever. It's cheap. It's a cheap.
He's the ghost in the machine, and he's the one who's the most ghost-like because he can still go into people's bodies.
This is Richard Kelly writing Donnie Darko intelligent. He's like, oh, he runs a company called Deus Ex Machina. He's going to be the Deus Ex Machina.
I thought it was all right. I don't like Donnie Darko. How dare you?
I know. That's why I picked that blade, because I knew it would stab deep.
Why do you want to cut me? I thought we were friends.
It's only metaphorical cutting, that's all. No real cutting. Anyway, so yeah, he can like transform it into someone else. He just leaves. So what's funny is that Lana Wachowski said repeatedly that she doesn't want to do it anymore, and this is a standalone film. And I feel like this ending like leaves it so open for so many sequels. But
no, I don't think so.
It kind of does. Like you got Smith still out there. You got all these new characters you could expand upon.
But Smith doesn't want to be involved. He's good. Like his motivation in this film is to be free, and he's free at the end.
You do not need to convince that of me. I didn't want him to be back for the second movie. Never mind the fourth one. Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So they show up so that they can beat up Neil Patrick Harris. Trinity kicks off his jaw, which was foreshadowed earlier in the film, and she, also basically kills him by like kicking his head off, and then like just snaps his fingers.
Like it has the ability to rewind that he did.
I don't know if it was rewind powers or more just like she can recreate him like instantly and just put them back together. But maybe you're right. Maybe it was rewinding.
I thought it was kind of a rewind thing.
I thought.
Yeah.
Well, because they say they're going to go remake the world, so I just got the impression they could control everything in it. So that includes him. But then basically says, yeah, we're going to go and recreate the world, and you gave
Sky full of rainbows.
You gave us a second chance, and we get a stupidly cheesy shot of them flying together and like sort of holding hands and spinning around, which was a bit much.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it ends the way the Matrix ends, but it's both of them this time. And they're in love.
You could have had them flying side by side. The spinning around holding hands was a bit much. It was a bit cheesy. Okay, it was just a bit cheesy. All right. I think that's the thing. I don't know if like other people were like sort of reining them in on the first Matrix, and that's why the Matrix ended up being as good as it was, because there was someone saying no, this is too far, or this is, but
Sorry.
but like all the sequels have like do go a bit too anime and a bit too cheesy at times. This one less so on the anime front, but
I don't think so at all.
but like. I still feel some of the story in there is a bit, a bit cheesy and schlocky. It does make me think of their other works that aren't The Matrix. It makes me think of the first episode of Sense8 that I watched, or God, what was that one?
Wasn't
Tom Hanks.
Sense8 the Cloud Atlas?
Cloud Atlas, that's the one, yeah.
I haven't seen that one either.
Which basically like. And it hurts me to say this because, like I say, I like the core themes, but ultimately it still sounds like a lot of drivel, the movie. And that's how I felt about Cloud Atlas. This is a lot of pretentious drivel without backing it up. And this gets closer to backing it up, but it still doesn't quite do it, unfortunately. So, I would say that this is an interesting mess of a film that is not good. It like, tries to rebel against like a lot of what Hollywood is doing, but just ends up doing a lot of it anyway. Intentional satire or not, it doesn't necessarily work just because you're saying it's satire. So, yeah, I've said my piece. You can go with a positive. You can end on a positive note if you wish.
I think I will. Yeah, because I have free will, and I'm able to do what I want.
I never meant to suggest otherwise.
Well, yeah, it's a Matrix thing.
I don't know Neil Patrick Harris. How dare you?
I think, obviously you're going to be skeptical when you hear about Matrix 4. What the hell do you do with a Matrix 4 plot after Neo and Trinity have been killed?
Don't make it. That's what you do.
And I think doing the meta angle was very clever, and I actually really enjoyed the film. And I do like these two characters, and I like them together, and I like them in this movie. So, overall, I'm pretty positive on it. I don't know what my rating would be in a couple more watches, or if I'm able to like really decipher the other things that are happening in this film. I think there is a lot of layers in it, and I'd like to know more. I would love to watch it with a commentary from the director. So I am going to give it a 7. I like the film. Good job.
All right, so this is a frustrating one. I mean, if nothing else, I'll give it this. It was an interesting conversation. There was things to talk about. There was ideas, and I do think the core theme is strong. But I do think the execution of everything else as a movie is really lackluster, and it looks very generic. The action is TV quality most of the time, and sub TV. Honestly, I mean, these days you get some really good action on TV shows. So I think on every other level, I think there's characters you can cut out. Even New Morpheus, to be honest, like I don't know if he adds a whole lot to the movie other than just looking kind of cool and having a couple of funny moments. Like,
He does look cool.
Like he has a moment where it's like, okay, to wake Neo up a bit and get him used to the Matrix again, like we'll put him in a kung fu dojo training program for a minute, and I'm like, this is just nostalgia. This is just reaching through the screen and like fondling all the fans. That's what this is.
I think that's on purpose. I think that's supposed to be there to make fun of it.
Doesn't make it any more entertaining. Doesn't make it any more entertaining, though.
It's very much like The Last Jedi when it opens up with Luke Skywalker holding the lightsaber and everyone's going, what's he going to do with it? And he just throws it over the edge of the cliff.
I mean, you can say that, but it doesn't make it any more entertaining to watch. I still had to sit through it. I didn't think it was enjoyable.
I thought it was pretty fun.
It was one of those things where I'm just like, I don't care about you fighting each other like this. This is just a lackluster reference to the first movie, and even if that's the point,
just about waking him up. That's all.
But even if that's the point, it doesn't make it any more entertaining to watch. Like you have to, the idea can be there, but you have to marry it with the execution that makes it work.
All right, what are you gonna rate this thing?
Yes, and yeah, I would cut it in the OB. Old age makeup's I mean, it's not the worst looking, but it's distracting, and she's not good at pretending.
She's
to be
just not
old.
good at acting old. Yeah.
And there's a few other like acting moments here or there that I thought was a bit rough. So, yeah, 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Which is higher than the previous 2 sequels.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's the best of the sequels.
So 5 out of 10 is the best. That said, though, I still wouldn't recommend watching. I wouldn't recommend watching any of the sequels. Watch the original Matrix. Forget about the rest. Your life will be better for it. They're not worth it. The rest are all just tacked on expansion fan fiction. The first movie's the only one that matters. Forget the rest.
Just like Tremors.
I don't know. Tremors 2 is actually kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie. Tremors 2, it's worth your
Sequels
time.
are just tacked on.
I mean, they are, but that's a movie about monsters jumping up and trying to eat people. It's harder to like ruin that in quite the same way.
All right. So we're done.
But actually, before we wrap up, did you see the post-credit scene?
Oh, yeah. I did.
Yes, the brainstorming team suggests that they should make the cat tricks because the internet loves cat videos.
Yeah. It's also kind of another little satire of just useless post-credit scenes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I love the aim in the movie. I just wish that the talent was there to actually back it up. Because it wasn't. So I'm sorry. The Wachowskis haven't made a good movie since The Matrix. Not really. So, although with the asterisk, I've not seen Jupiter Ascending yet. Okay, yes, I admit.
It's pretty good.
All right. So coming next week, we got Damnation Alley. So look forward to that. Back to the 70s season. We got 2 more 70s movies. That was the vote winner, so we'll get to that next week. Bonus movie, it'll be sometime soon for patrons as well, and YouTube. Well, actually, just patrons. YouTube members will get it eventually, but they're catching up by getting old patron episodes. So, Tara, you have to pose for the thumbnail. So,
Damn it.
do your best Matrixy pose. If you've got any sunglasses or maybe a shiny coat they can put on, something, I don't know. All right. 3, 2, 1, pose. I think the only problem with that is that you're leaning back so much to get your hand in that your hand is perfectly lit and your face is like in the darkness.
You can work with it.
So sure, I'll do my best. But yes, that has been The Matrix Resurrections. Let us know what you think of the movie. Comments, like, subscribe, ding the bell. All those things help on YouTube a lot. Rate us 5 stars and give us a review on iTunes, wherever you get your podcast from. All these things help us out a bunch and support the content and keep it all coming. As does, of course, giving us money. And where can they do that, Tara?
Yeah, if you enjoy our reviews, please check out the Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildfuzzTV. And if you donate as little as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of The Ace. So you can finally find out what we think of all those Tremors sequels, because we're going through them. And we've got a whole back catalog of other films, usually B-movie caliber or sequel caliber, that don't belong on the main channel. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get to vote on what we watch once a month, and you'll get access to these episodes a day early. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
I like how you say thank you to me the same way you say thank you to the audience after you've done the plug.
Thank you.
That was different. You've lost it now. There we go. That is the episode. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. Obviously December was a bit weird for the schedule, but we should be back to a nice consistent weekly show now. So next up, Damnation Alley, and then Final 70s movie after that, and then we'll get into some stuff afterwards, which we have some of it decided, we have some of it not decided, and here's to a bright. This is the last episode of 2021. I think it'll be out in time for that. So
Whoa.
Here's to a good 2022. Well, thank you for enjoying the show throughout 2021. Obviously, it's been another fairly rough year on a wide scale. So hopefully we've helped distract you a little bit from your worries and your
responsibilities.
Yeah, the T virus. Just the Resident Evil reference.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
It was just you know. I went to see the Resident Evil movie a few weeks ago to do it was on streams with Tim, and it's just funny given the world that we're in right now. Like, all the characters are we need to stop the T virus from breaking out. I'm like, oh god, this is too relatable right now. So yeah, thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer. Add salsa.